Right. As you know, we've just had a historic referendum in which the UK has decided it wants to leave the European Union. There's been a public outcry. Nobody's quite sure how exactly it's going to play out. It will definitely have effects on the British economy. In fact, we've already started seeing some effects. But it will also have some effects on the European economy and to a certain extent even on the global economy. The extent to which the British, European and global economies are affected will depend largely on what kind of trade deal the UK manages to put together with the EU. You might know that the UK would like to start informal talks before setting up an official deal, but the EU would rather go straight to the official talks. Right, there are three possible ways that it could play out, three scenarios. Scenario number one is the least disruptive. In this case, there would be an agreement made very quickly, and the UK and the EU would cooperate. The EU would try to keep the UK as close as possible as a trading partner without it actually being a member of the EU. So in this case, it would go reasonably well. A trade deal could be struck similar to the model of Norway, where Norway has access to the single market, but it isn't actually part of the EU. So it's able to trade with the EU, it has access to its goods and services, but it also has to make a contribution. So there's the pro and the con. So scenario number one is a trade deal similar to Norway, fairly positive, everyone cooperates. This would give enough certainty to UK businesses to allow investors to start their activities again, because at the moment everyone's a bit nervous, they're not sure if they should be investing. So if this sort of deal was struck, UK businesses would probably start investing again fairly quickly. In this scenario, the UK economy might have a rough couple of months, but by the end of the year it should be starting to settle down again. And the effects on Europe would be reasonably small. The same sort of result could be achieved if we were somehow able to manage to reverse the results of the referendum and just not leave Brexit. So in that case, we would also have a few rough months, but then by the end of the year, things would be more or less on an even keel again. Moving on to the second possible scenario. This is also the most likely scenario. It's what we can expect. In this case, negotiations take a bit longer. In the next couple of months, both sides will discuss, they'll negotiate, and they'll each come to an idea, a fairly clear idea, of what they want. But what each side wants won't necessarily be what the other side wants. So there'll be some clarity in what each side is trying to achieve, but there will still be some disagreements, particularly in terms of immigration and movement of goods and people. This would be quite an unsettled situation, and businesses in the UK and possibly in other countries where the UK has strong trade links would defer spending. Because it's such an unsettled situation, everybody would want to avoid taking risks and wait and see how it plays out before they make big decisions. So people would defer spending, they would try to hold on to their money for the moment. At the same time, the number of jobs wouldn't necessarily go down immediately. So although businesses are trying to defer spending, they're obviously not going to try hiring new workers at that point, but they also wouldn't want to let their workers go immediately, because if things get better later, then it's expensive to rehire them. So we have businesses deferring spending and holding on to their workers, but not hiring any new ones. We would also see the pound plummeting, as in fact we've already seen immediately after the referendum, the pound already fell precipitously. As the pound falls, imported goods will become more expensive. And this is significant because the UK imports 40% of the goods that it uses. So a weak pound leading to expensive imports, and people's people's economic situation would suffer as a result. We would see, in this case, we would see the UK going into an economic recession. And remember, this is the most likely result. Right, scenario number 3. In this case, it doesn't go well. Negotiations stall, and there's a lot of anti-EU and anti-Euro sentiment in Britain. Obviously, this would put off European investors. I mean, what European investor would want to invest in the UK if the UK is not in favour of the Euro or of Europe? So there would be less European investment in the UK. As a result, share prices would drop. The banks would become nervous because of this drop in share prices. And when banks become nervous, you have a problem. They would start limiting credit. So they wouldn't want to lend money to people or to businesses. Because of this uncomfortable economic situation, there would be a rise in unemployment, or at least a risk of a rise of unemployment. Similarly to the previous situation, people would defer spending because of this uncertainty. People wouldn't want to start spending immediately because they don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they're going to lose their job. Maybe the economy is going to grow. Maybe it's going to crash again. Nobody knows. So people tend to hold on to their money in times of uncertainty. Also, in this situation, we would see the pound plummeting. Now, this could be positive or it could be negative, because foreign investors could say, oh, there's a weak pound, that means that property is going to be cheaper for us to buy, and you could have lots of Russian or Arab investors coming and buying up property in London, for example. They're hunting a bargain. But it could also have the opposite effect, because yes, property in London or other parts of the UK could be a bargain, but it also could be an unwise investment. Because if London ends up not being, well, if it ends up losing its status as one of Europe's financial centres, then property in the UK will lose its value. So investors won't necessarily see it as so favourable to invest in property in the UK. So in conclusion, I hope, like I think all of you, I hope that Brexit can be reversed. I don't think it's entirely likely, but of course there's always the possibility. And in any case, if it's not reversed, I hope that we manage to at least attain scenario 1, which is the most settled situation of all. Thank you.